Hello my fellow kin, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Warhammer 40k tactical report. Of course, featuring the Leagues of Votann versus the Adeptus Mechanicus in this week's episode. If you guys are enjoying these tactical report videos, please let me know in the comments down below. It really does mean a lot and lets me know that you guys are enjoying this kind of content and that I should keep making it. With that said, let's jump on in. But of course, a massive thank you to all of our amazing channel members whose ongoing support help make these videos possible. Thank you guys so much. It really does mean a lot. The mission in today's video is Scorched Earth Crucible of Battle, and we did decide to shake things up a little here and take out the WTC terrain, which I haven't played on in quite some time. And the terrain layout we were using here, of course, was Crucible of Battle, which corresponded to medium terrain layout 4 for WTC. So that's what we have here for today's game. Now, I was taking Prospectors for this video this week. This is probably going to be the last Prospector game I play for a little while. I just think I'm ready to shake it up a little bit and try one of the other detachments out that I haven't had some time to test yet. And I'll share some of my thoughts maybe a little later on in the video and more formally when we do the actual detachment deep dive coming out either this week or next. So in terms of the list that I was running, I was taking Persecution Prospect. My list had Uthar the Destined, a Grimnir. I had a Memnir Strategist with the Nomad Strategist enhancement, which lets me basically once per game I spend some yield points, I pick up a bunch of different Hernkin units and put them back into reserves, even if they're in combat with something, as long as that unit is assailed. It's pretty niche, very specific. I'll talk about it more in the detachment breakdown video, but I was trying that out today. I then had two sets of 10 Hearthkin Warriors. One was combat squad and the other one was going to be with the Grimnir. I had a 6-man Thunderkin unit with Gravs. I had a 3-man Thunderkin unit with Gravs that was in reserves. I had 2x2 Chthonian Earthshakers, which I think are pretty critical to how this detachment wants to play. I then had two sets of 5, so MSU Hearthguard and Deep Strike that had plasma guns. I had two sets of 10 Jaegers that were going to combat squad inside of their Capri carriers. I had a 6-man unit of melee Steeljacks, and then I had, of course, for the transports themselves, like I said, the two carriers, a Sagittar to combat squad, and then I had 3x3 Pioneers. So you may notice that this is pretty trash heavy. This was not the list I was planning on taking. I actually really wanted to test out a big brick of Hearthguard in this detachment with the Speculator enhancement, I think it's called, I don't remember, our Eye for Weakness, which gives you +1 to wound against infantry targets that are assailed, because I felt that was something I was lacking in my list, was just some more output, some more power in terms of shooting capabilities and melee. So I just wanted to have a little bit more damage in my list. So unfortunately, I was visiting my friend out of town. I forgot to pack my Hearthguard because I'm a fool, and for some reason I had a Sagittar and 10 Warriors in my bag, so I just made some adjustments to the list when I was there, threw an enhancement in, and took this one instead. So it's quite trash heavy, like I said, which I do think is actually reflected in the secondary scoring. So if you see, I did score 39 points on secondaries this game, which I think is quite high. Usually I'm somewhere around that 32 to 36 range. So this was a pretty big spike in secondary potential, probably because I just had so many more activations to play with. In terms of deployment, you can see it pretty clearly here. I had 3 bikes over here on this side of the board, 3 bikes over here ready to screen. I had 5 warriors that were here ready to walk up and be OC denial on this objective. I had 5 Jaegers that were safely infiltrating over here. I scouted up a carrier, had my Steeljacks centrally positioned to target this objective or go for the center. Over here I had Uthar with the 6-man brick of Thunderkin ready to pop out this way. You can get an angle on the middle objective. You could also shoot anything that walks here just because of the movement and the range of the deployment zone. Whatever would start here and move out is going to end inside of firing range of the 6-man Grav unit. I then had the Sagittar here splitting my warriors. On my home base, I had 2x2 Earthshakers with the Memnir Strategist in the back. I then had a 10-man brick of warriors here with the Grimnir. Infiltrating here, I had 5 Jaegers, I had 3 bikes, and another carrier. Like I said, a lot of trash. For my opponent's list, he was running the detachment is quite flexible in terms of picking buffs at the beginning of every round. For Admech, he was running a couple of the transports over here holding 10-man Skutari units for battle line. He had a big brick of his breachers over here. He had the transport, the vehicle variant over here with all the guns. He then had Call, more of the infantry that scouted up this way. He had a, I forget what this thing is called, a doom crawler. He had a few of the last cannon chickens, which are pretty good, to be honest with you. They're kind of insane now. And he had another one, I believe, or two inside of reserves, which we'll see a little later in the video. And then critically, holding his backfield here behind this wall was a character alone who had a 12-inch deep strike denial buff. So I could not get within 12 of basically this whole area over here. Before we go any further, I'll say we were playing on a very high table, so I apologize for the weird angles here. You can't really see behind some of these buildings. All of these pictures were taken by me standing with 1 foot on a stool, so forgive me for that. In the future, I'll avoid this table. Kicking the game off, round one, my opponent ends up going first on the dice roll here, which is great for me. It's Scorched Earth, so having that going second advantage, especially with a list that has so much trash and uppy-downy units, is phenomenal, because I could actually reliably, very reasonably threaten to burn his home objective at the end of the game, which is a massive swing in points. So was really not too concerned about coming ahead here on primary. And I knew that I could afford to play a much slower game. I had more trash than he did, and I was also going second, which is a great combination to have. So if I could get rid of some of his early game trading pieces quickly and effectively with a lot of my trading pieces, then the game should be a breeze to get through, because he has to bring his hard-hitting pieces out earlier, and then I get to respond with all of my stuff. My opponent, like I said, gets first turn here. He ends up pulling for cards, no prisoners, established locus. So he ends up bringing a single little Skitarii guy out this way onto the objective. He's concerned that I'm going to immediately deny him primary and put him on a 5 because I have so much trash. So he does decide to bring the guy out onto the objective. He has a reactive move. He could potentially go back inside if he wants to. And if I do threaten to deny him primary over here, I'm going to have to also deny him primary over here. So just trying to get me to draw more resources out as well. So he brings this guy out and gets a 2 points for Locus. He ends up doing some very light staging, setting up for his turn 2. Over here, he ends up bringing these guys out onto the objective. They're quite safe. I actually haven't played on WTC in a long time, but looking back at this map, I definitely set myself up incorrectly for deployment, my macro approach to this game, because I actually think this is my natural expansion. The line of sight capabilities are actually quite narrow here. So you can safely hold all of this without getting shot, unless your opponent comes out into this ruin over here to see you, in which case you could shoot him and come around and shoot as well. So I was baited over here by not having played on WTC for literal months, but this I think was actually the right approach here. Going over to my turn 1, I end up pulling for cards, attempting target and bring it down. So my opponent tempts me over here to get onto this objective. So what I end up doing is I actually just bring my 5 Jaegers up this way. So I get 5 OC on it, and then I swing one set of my bikes around to be able to interact with his trash. Over here in the middle, something interesting happens. So I bring out, I believe it's 2 OC, so 2 Jaegers, just to deny him primary. And what he does is he reactive moves. Instead of coming out, well, instead of hiding inside of his truck, he actually decides to bring more guys out from behind the wall. So he guarantees himself this primary, because on paper, 5 Jaegers, or 2 Jaegers rather, that have visibility are unable to actually kill this unit, and he's hidden from line of sight from this Capri over here. And the only other thing that could really see him are these 2 bikes, but these 2 bikes really want to go into these targets that are behind the wall. So he sets himself up here to score the 10 on primary, because over here I put 5 OC onto this objective with my Jaegers to deny him primary again. So I'm trying to put him on a 5, kill his trash, and get him to bring out his heavy hitting pieces first. That's kind of my game plan here, because at the end of the game I score a 15. If I could get all of this to vacate the area. Here's a picture from behind the scenes, what I end up doing. So I staged my warriors and the Grimnir on this side of the table up right behind this ruin. And what this is allowing me to do is reliably threaten a heroic intervention that will both deny him primary and secure primary for myself. By that I mean, if he charges me with the Sicarians, he's going to have to come around this way and touch me, which will trigger my potential to heroically intervene. And then I could throw this whole unit up. This is like a 3-inch distance, right? So I could throw this whole unit up On average, I should roll like a 7 or so. I'm in hostile acquisition, so I could re-roll it if I really wanted to, and that could launch me with the pile-ins, or consolidate rather, the pile-ins all the way around here and get a bunch of OC on this objective, securing it for myself in case he interacts with other areas of the board. So they're tough to chew through because they're 10-man warrior bricks that have a Grimnir attached to them, and it actually forces a significant response out of him as well and guarantees me the point. So this is one of the use cases that I have found to be quite nice for this warrior brick, is threatening heroics and not being afraid of dying because you have such high durability and a ton of OC value that you're bringing. Moving along to my shooting and charge phase. So nothing too interesting happens on this side. As anticipated, I'm able to pick up this squad with ease. Now, before I activate this unit, I actually decide to do something very cheeky with my Earthshakers. So I put the Earthshakers into his Skitarii. Now, he has access to stealth, and he has access to +1 toughness from his buff that he got. I popped the first set of Earthshakers in, and then the second one, because the first set provides the assailed debuff to the target, it triggers my eligibility to pop a stratagem for full reroll hit rolls against the unit that's assailed if I'm not a Hernkin unit. So that means I get the benefit on my second Earthshaker unit. Just the weight of fire of these things is insane. So between the two sets of 2, with the strat, I was able to pick up all 10 of these now toughness 4 models that had stealth on top of that. So hitting on 5s with the full rerolls, I was still able to pick up a full set by sheer weight of fire and getting all those rerolls to trigger. So just an incredible unit. Like, I really love the Earthshakers so much, and I struggle to move away from them just for this reason alone. We go to my opponent's top of round 2 turn over here. So he does score a 5 on primary, which was the plan. And for cards, he ends up pulling a Marked for Death and Area Denial. He brings around one of his chickens this way because now he lost his trash piece. So he brought this chicken out this way, triggered my reactive move. I got back inside of my carrier, and I'm going to do it again next turn as well. And then because I'm still within 6 inches of the middle with my carrier itself, I'm denying him the big score of Area Denial, so he just gets the little one instead. And then lastly, over here, he kind of just pushes up onto this objective. Over here, he aggressively pushes up with his Breachers, and he brings his vehicle up. I tried to do a reactive move here to kind of move block where he could disembark, or where he could bring his vehicle. I didn't roll high enough, unfortunately. Maybe I should have popped the flat 6 reactive move. That would have been a much better play instead, but I guess I didn't think about that in the moment. And then over here, he disembarks everything out because you can react and move back inside, and he's going to try to pick up everything on this side of the table. As you can see here, my opponent does succeed in his plan. He picks up all my Jaegers contesting the objective with these Breachers. Naturally, he charges in with his Sicarians, kills only like 2 or 3 of my warriors because of how durable they are. They just don't die, which was great for me because I got more of his trash to be on my side of the table where I could interact with it. And then over here, he basically picked up all my stuff. Going into round 2 for me, I end up getting a 5 on primary as well because he did manage to get me off of this objective, and this objective at the time. Going into my secondary cards, I end up pulling Establish Locus and Extend Battle Lines. What I decided to do here is a little bit on the crazy side, but I really wanted to get him to bring some of his bigger, hard-hitting pieces out onto the open so I could trade in with some of my other units. So what I do here is I actually decide to just send a Sagittar with 5 warriors inside, and again stick 1 Jaeger out onto the objective. And what this does is, it used to be one of Votann's greatest ways to guarantee primary is you stick 2 activations effectively out in the open. You need to have one that pops the tank and then one that kills whatever's inside. It's a little bit less efficient now because the tanks lost a toughness level, they lost an OC, and they're obviously not as durable. But the premise is still very much applicable. If my opponent wants to interact with this, he needs at least 3 activations to kill it. At least 3 activations, which is tough to do. Over here, I bring 5 more of my warriors out this way. I also bring out my Thunderkin brick here because, as I said before, he walked into that firing range, and I kind of wanted to get these guys that were inside of this vehicle out in the open. If I could get them to fall out of this transport because I pop it, my next turn, I could get my 2 Earthshakers to pick up the full set of 10 again. And in this matchup, I actually didn't find that the grabs were going to be that viable for my win condition. So I decided to sack them this turn, knowing that if they kill this, like, I'm going to pick up his trash, and then he has no way at all to stop me from taking control of this objective over here, and then slowly bringing my units down and pushing for his home. So that was the plan. I bring these guys out, and I end up killing with the Sagittar this chicken in the middle. They shoot everything into this unit. This is one of the biggest problems that I find in this detachment is damage output into vehicles, because my opponent pops smoke, I'm hitting him on 5s. I don't really have any ways to buff that, and I only end up doing 3 damage. So one single shot goes through out of the full Thunderkin brick when they're hitting on 5s and no access to rerolls for anything. So that was brutal. And now they're kind of just out here in the open, but I have access again to like the reactive move if he brings something too close to me over here, or even smoke. I could give a unit stealth in my list. Round 3, my opponent, so top of round 3, he ends up getting the 5, which is what we wanted. And he pulls for cards, storm hostile objective and engage on all fronts. So no problem for my opponent here. He responds to everything I did. I did manage to draw all of his resources out that I wanted to. So you could see here, right, he brought the Doomcrawler out, he brought the Cataphrons out this way, he brought his tank up, his transport, he disembarked all of his guys, and they did manage to pick up the tank and the warriors that were inside, but just by how the activations lined up, he had nothing left that could interact with my Jaeger unit. So my Jaeger unit, because I had one guy on this objective, still survived, guaranteeing myself a 10 for next turn, which is massive and was the goal behind the play. Over here, he also does something very aggressive. I think this was actually a mistake. He ends up pushing all of this out here to delete my 5 warriors that were on this objective. I think in hindsight, he probably should have just tucked the tank out this way a little bit and shot it, and then he just auto-sees me and kept some of his resources safe, because now he's given me essentially everything in his list to target and shoot. Last thing he does here is he brings one of his chickens down because he doesn't want me to rapid ingress or deep strike on my turn somewhere here. So he just puts this here to block for now. It has move, advance, and charge, so it could be pretty nimble and get into the fight quickly. I do something here that's pretty nice. I rapid ingress my Hearthguard. So his chicken, this melee chicken that he rapid ingress last turn, comes up this way and goes in for the charge. So I rapid ingress my Hearthguard, and then I heroically intervene with my Hearthguard, and the Hearthguard killed the chicken. Amazing. That's like a win-win. Like, they were here to get more movement out of this, but what ends up happening is they get more movement and they kill the target that they heroiced into, which is awesome. I wasn't able to swing the objective, of course. He has 100 OC on it, but I was able to kill one of his resources on my turn, which is always great. Going into my turn 3 here, so bottom of the round, I end up getting a 10, which was the goal. That's what I really wanted to do. And I end up pulling for cards, overwhelming force, and no prisoners. So just kill things, which is perfect because I got everything in his army to be exposed. So that was exactly what I was going to do. So this was a big turn for me. This is the cleanup turn, kind of like my go turn here. So what I end up doing is I actually, you'll notice here I moved my Earthshakers up. I identified here at this point in the game that my plan is working. I'm stripping him of all of his resources and material. And what that means is I have a really good chance of getting on this objective. So what I wanted to do here was actually manage to kill his character behind this wall. It was going to take me 2 turns to reach the range to shoot him, because they don't reach. They're only 36-inch range. So I was like, this turn I'm going to walk them up and they'll still be able to shoot something. So over here, I do something that's pretty interesting. He has the ability to reactive move. And I anticipated that he is saving it for the Skitarii that are over here. So he was really worried about my Steeljack specifically, right? Because this unit blends, and they would come out here, they would charge, they would touch these guys and just be on the objective and be really annoying to deal with. So he was holding his reactive move for this squad over here. So what I end up doing, knowing that information, I bring my Hearthguard out this way so they could see the Skitarii. And I deep strike, regular deep strike, my 5 Hearthguard down over here. And my plan is to actually not interact with this objective with any of my resources. So my plan is to actually just annihilate them with the Earthshakers. So what I end up doing this turn is I pop my strat to go back from Fortify into Hostile Acquisition, because all of his things that I want to kill are all on objectives. By the way, he also picked up the Thunderkin with ease on his turn. I forgot to mention that. I popped Stealth. They still just all died. Wasn't even an issue for him to deal with, which is a little bit disappointing with that unit. But that did actually help keep the squad alive to Urmi Primary, because he diverted some of his fire into that squad instead. So I end up shooting with my Hearthguard into his 3-man Breacher squad with the plasmas. They pick them all up. The grenade launchers go into the Skitarii, pick like almost all of them up. These guys put all of their shots into them as well, pick all of them up. And then over here, my 2 Earthshakers go into this squad of Skitarii, pick all of them up. So now he's out of trash. He's completely out of trash. He is also very low on material as well because his list is relatively elite. And this means that I have an advantage here going into the end of the game. Over here, I decide to bring in 3 of my Thunderkin that were in reserves. For some reason, I end up accidentally grabbing 3 that weren't even in the game. They're not in my list. This is probably from the confusion of having to change the list last minute and just the travel lag. I guess I just had them all on the table, so I grabbed another set and put them here. They shouldn't be here. They don't have too much of an impact, thankfully, as you'll see in a bit, but they shoot everything into this vehicle, this transport, to get it down to 2 wounds, and then I failed to kill it. But I did end up getting all the resource pieces that I wanted over here. The last thing I do here for my charge phase and fight phase is I bring the Hearthguard out, they pick up the chicken, they tag the transport, and what I'm basically telling my opponent now is choose if you want to fight and kill me with just the bare minimum of material you have left, or if you want to try to hold primary instead, right? Like you're going to have to trade either primary or damage. In this case, or secondaries as well, like if you pull some action cards. Like he doesn't have the material anymore at this point in the game to actually be able to complete any of his objectives. So my opponent's turn 4, he does end up getting a 10 on primary because this cheeky tank survived, even though I illegally shot him with 3 Thunderkin. I shouldn't be in this game. I'm sorry for that. And then over here, I end up doing a cheeky reactive move with my Hearthguard, bring him back behind the wall because he's threatening to charge with his melee chicken. So I run away over here. These guys are as good as dead, but they did their job. They got everything else out and forced him away from another objective. He can't be everywhere at once. He can't do all of his actions at once. So I'm just making use of the fact that he's so light on material at this point in the game. These guys traded for that purpose. It's fine that they die. I don't really care. For secondary cards, he ends up drawing here Overwhelming Force and Sabotage. For his shooting, his charging, he ends up doing quite a bit of damage into the Hearthguard and charging in, tank shocking, but I end up surviving with a couple of models here, which was super annoying for him. And then over here, he picks up these guys no problem at all. Going into my turn 4, so I do score a 5 here on primary. So at this point, I had a 5, 10, 5. And I knew at the end of the game I was going to get a 20 now because I still had these bikes that were alive. I kept bouncing them up and down. And the board was quite open for me. There's a world now where I could pretty reliably get somewhere here or here on my turn 5 and then go burn this objective, especially if I dealt with like this transport or this vehicle rather. So wasn't too concerned about hitting the 5 on this turn at all. And then I set myself up here. I just try to pick up more of his material and tie things up, really, is what I'm looking to do. Just make it as complicated as possible for him to respond to the pieces on the board. And again, to do action-based secondaries. I just want to cause issues for him with my units. I don't care about primary at this point because I know I'm getting a 20 at the end of the game. The only other impactful thing that happens here is I do finally, over the course of 2 turns, get 1 artillery base in range of this character behind the wall. And I shoot it with that 1 base, but unfortunately it doesn't kill it, which was unfortunate because then I could have just rapid ingressed over here and then walked up and taken the objective, which would have been great. These guys inconsequentially hide behind this wall. All of these units come out here and pick up this truck that's on this objective over there. Top of round 5 for my opponent here, getting to the end of the game. He decides to hold everything in the middle and just try to maintain primary control on this so he could get a guaranteed 10. And on top of that, he decides to do Scorched Earth. So he burns this objective so that he could get a 15 if I'm unable to stop it from burning, obviously, if I don't regain control. At this point here, I rapid ingress the bikes. Like we said, I bring them down over here. And only a single guy could see me if he wants to interact with this. He decides instead to put the shots, I think, into these steel jacks and pick up most of them because only a single base was able to see my bikes. Going into my turn 5 here, wrapping the game up for secondary cards, I do pull Sabotage and Defend Stronghold. Now, In terms of what I try to do this turn, so Call at the end of his turn charges in, kills both of these carriers over here. 5 Jaegers disembark somewhere over here like this. And I try auto-advancing them 6 inches up to touch this objective, because that would be able to give me enough full seat to deny the burn from happening. So if I was able to get them here, I'd deny burn. Unfortunately, he overwatches, of course, and he kills 4 out of 5 of them. So they weren't able to do that, which was a good play on his part. Then over here, these bikes at the end of his turn uppy downied, so they went up and then they came down over here and they did sabotage for 6 points for me in his DZ because of Crucible line. This box is in the way. And then naturally, like I said, this squad of bikes that were over here just kind of zip around this way, touch the objective, and burn it for 10. So this takes my total primary points at the end of the game that I earned this turn to 10 for burning, 5 for holding, 5 for holding. Now, obviously worth mentioning, like, these guys should not have been here, and there's a bit of a butterfly effect, right? Because this tank that was in this ruin over here like this ate 1 turn of fire from 3 Thunderkin and 2 models in this set, which took it down to 2 wounds total. So maybe, like, you know, this set here shooting into the 2 wound one, just these 3 guys at the end of the game on my turn, wouldn't have been enough to potentially kill it, which means that if he survived, I couldn't come down here for my rapid ingress. Now, that said, there was a safer play here that I could do. Like, you know, alternatively, I could, if I wanted to be risky, bring this 3-man bike squad down over here and try for the same play. However, I'm risking dying to the shooting phase of this transport, of this vehicle, shooting into me. Alternatively, like I said, a safer play would have been I just come down over here with the 3-man bike squad instead, and then just come burn this one, whereas these guys still do their uppy downy to get me to sabotage points over here. So ultimately, what this would have changed is if it didn't die, if it didn't die, I would have scored 5 fewer points of primary now, like at the end of the game. So I would have gone from 20 points scored to 15. And also, since this vehicle was doing sabotage for my opponent at the end of the game, had I not killed it, he would have scored 3 points more. So that would have changed the final score from being presently 89 to 62 for the Leagues of Votann. It would have brought me down by 5 and put me at 84, and would have brought my opponent up from 62 to 65. So it would have been an 84 to 65 point victory for the Leagues of Votann. Had this transport survived, because 2 of these models couldn't see it because they shouldn't be in the game. So sorry about that. I apologize. Shouldn't have happened. So just some closing thoughts overall on the list. I think this game really made me realize that I'm not really gaining much in this detachment, unfortunately. It pains me to say that because I think it's really cool. It's just, I'm going to talk about this in the deep dive, but it's just like it's missing a little bit more to just make it work. It has some tricks. It's kind of fast for sure, but you just don't have enough consistency or damage, and you do unfortunately need that in the game. Like I saw it here, I struggled into tanks and vehicles. I was really having a difficult time dealing with that. And I love the list. Like my list played well. You know, I wouldn't take the Sagittar and the 5 and the 10 warriors because it's just too much trash. Instead, I would have had more Hearthguard. And I think like I take this concept and I just copy paste it into Hearthband instead. And I think that's literally like a good Hearthband list. Like I think this list with the Sagi out and warriors out and instead taking more Hearthguard is an actually good Hearthband list. So just like looking at that, I do think I'm going to switch gears up and try a different detachment out next time. I'll talk about it more in the deep dive, like I said. I rambled on enough already. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for watching the video. Really appreciate your support. Let me know what you thought about the game down in the comments below. If you tried Prospectors out, which detachment is working for you, and which one do you find a little underwhelming maybe. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.